Hey everybody, not really sure if I'm here yet or if I'm somewhere else. Now I think I'm beginning to show. There we go. All right, so let's wait and see who all's here before I start running my big mouth about loads and loads and loads of things. As you may notice, I got my headset on. I generally do that when I've been talking too much. That's the astrologer's job, is to just talk all the time. We just talk and talk and talk all day long. And after a while of talking all day long, your throat gets really, really raw. Hello there, whoever, I think it's IILA is there. So I'm just going to wait for enough people to get here to go into some of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. In the meantime, how's everybody coping with Mars's transit of Bharani Nakshatra? I've been noticing a lot of people really getting frantic and freaking out and having a lot of intensity in their lives. And to be quite fair, I've been contacted by quite a lot of people in the last few days who are going, I'm like, really scared. I'm freaking out in terms of what's going on, and having to just remind them, really it's a Mars transit and that's what's going on. And actually, in a few days, it's likely going to ease up a little bit, everybody. So for those of you who are having a hard time with it, then that's what's going to happen. Hello, Leela. Thank you for clarifying. In the meantime, while we're kind of waiting to get started, I generally wait for like a good 11 or 12 people to get here before I go into the topic, which tonight we're going to talk about therapeutic qualities of the nakshatras. I'm not going to go into each nakshatra and explaining each nakshatra in depth. I'm just going to explain to you some of how this works so that you have a good concept. Pardon me, I just need a little bit of a drink. There we go. In the meantime, anybody who has any general astrological related questions, you can please feel free to ask. Please abstain from asking questions about your own horoscope. Hope everybody doesn't think I'm rude because I'm not looking at the camera. I just keep seeing people's posts over here. So I'm also reading the comments. How are you doing, communication technologist? Okay. So anybody with anything they want to talk about while we're just waiting for those numbers over there to reach like around 12 to 15, then we'll get started on the topic of what we're going to talk about. Because really, at the end of the day, it doesn't make any sense to kind of go into it if nobody's here to listen. Okay. So some of you are popping in and popping out. Just stay a minute, and trust I'm going to go into talking about the topic. I just need to wait for a couple more people to be here, because otherwise we just end up repeating ourselves over and over and over again. Okay. Swati Dubey, I don't work with padas in that way. So I hear what you're saying, but I wouldn't work with it in that way. That might be somebody else who you've learned from who are working with nakshatras in a certain way, right? And so if somebody's born in the last pada of Kritika, they would be in Kritika, right? Yeah, I am keeping hydrated. Thanks, Leela. It's more my throat. Okay. Does the topic relate to Ayurveda at all? No, it doesn't, Kali Snowden. But the thing is I am doing a medical astrology webinar course that starts at the end of this month. On that, we will go into the nakshatras as they relate to specific body parts and things like that. As a matter of fact, one of the things I was going to talk about tonight, and maybe this is a good point to kind of talk about it, is between now and 10:30 p.m. London time, roughly, which is another 3 hours, there's a 10% discount on registration for all of the courses that start in March. And if you go to register for any of those courses, either by trimester or payment in full, and use the discount code YouTube, then you'll get a 10% discount on that course. This is also open to consultations for the next 3 hours until 10:30 p.m. You can get a discount on consultations or any of the courses that are starting in March. Or in addition to that, one of the Nakshatra Therapeutic webinar series that I'm going to be doing, which is one of the things I'm here to talk to you about. Okay, so one of the things I kind of wanted to explain and express in association with this, I've got a PowerPoint open over here. I just don't want to share it with everybody because I just think it's would be a little bit fussy to do that, right? So I'll just read to you from it. Is the fact that people quite often misunderstand nakshatras, I'm convinced. It's not that nakshatras cannot, nor that they should not be used predictively. As a matter of fact, they excel at that. As a matter of fact, nakshatras are really good at understanding many of the finer details of a prediction. It helps to fine tune things and gives a lot more of the subtleties. But that's really like 1% of the potential of nakshatras, right? Because we can spend our whole life focusing on what is going to happen, when is it going to happen, who is it going to happen with. We can focus on that our whole lives, but generally maybe a better question to ask ourselves is, why is this happening, right? Nakshatras really help us to understand that. It helps us to understand the why. And that's because nakshatras really relate to how we're growing our consciousness in relation to a specific planet. Now, I kind of want to explain a little bit of the background related to this. First of all, let's understand what the Atma is. The Atman is the soul, right? Simply put, it's the soul. Really, it means soul of anything, but it's the soul. The Atman relates to the sun. Okay, so the sun just goes through life's experiences, accepts things as they are, and just does what is necessary. The moon's job, astrologically, is to reflect the light of the sun. Okay, its job is to reflect the light of our soul. But the moon waxes and wanes in its capacity to do so. Sometimes it does a really good job of it. Sometimes it does not as good of a job of it. And sometimes that coincides with the lunar cycles, the waxing and waning periods, and sometimes it just relates to the overall well being of the moon in the horoscope, right? So that's a good point to kind of start. The Atman is the soul, that relates to the sun. Okay. And the moon is our manas, or our sensory mind. So the sensory mind is how we perceive things, right? We sense things. But as each of you are likely aware, we quite often perceive things incorrectly, right? We see things one way when in actuality, they may be quite different, right? So the sensory mind is very subjective until we learn how to gain control of our senses, right? Just like the moon, it's subject to waxing and waning. Sometimes we see things clearly, sometimes we don't see things clearly. And if you think about it, the moon is related to the tides on the planet. Okay, the moon can make the tides rise, and it can make the tides subside. Equally, the moon has a similar effect to our own specific consciousness. It causes the modulations of the mind to rise and intensify, and sometimes it causes them to subside or even be at a low point. And so that's the job of the moon, is to give tonality to the subjective experience of our consciousness, right? The moon also grows things. So our consciousness, our sensory mind is there to help us to grow. It's there to help us to understand our experience of life, how to navigate it, how to go through it correctly, how to fulfill our needs, how to take care of things, but overall, how to grow. Now, it's said in Vedic philosophy that Varuna is the lord of the oceans, amongst other things. Varuna went through several permutations. You know, he was the lord of the skies, then the waters, then justice, and then truth, right? And in going into this a little more deeply, I hope I'm not losing people. If it's confusing, you can let me know. Varuna was also one of the Adityas, or the sons of Aditi. The Adityas were kind of recognized or understood as being personifications of the sun. So it's interesting that Varuna, on one level, is the sun, but Varuna also eventually became the lord of the waters and the lord of oceans and the lord of water creatures, right? So Varuna is lord of the waters, and I'm reading to you from something from my recent 2018 Nakshatra course. Varuna as lord of the waters and water creatures also relates to the oceanic consciousness of God, which is vast and deep. The ocean waves are a result of the moon's gravitational pull on the earth. Now, Krishna states that amongst water creatures, he is Varuna. Interestingly enough, Krishna is the incarnation of Vishnu that's connected to the moon. So it's no surprise if Krishna says that amongst water creatures he's Varuna and Krishna is connected to the moon, that Krishna is connected to Varuna, and Varuna is the presiding deity of the moon, and in addition to that, the oceans. Varuna is also noted to place the nakshatras in the sky. Now, here's an interesting thought. Varuna was one of the Adityas. So, on some levels, he was related to the sun, which, as we've discussed, is the Atman. And Varuna equally was connected to the moon. And Varuna placed the stars in the sky, which are what the nakshatras are related to. Sorry, I got distracted by somebody's comment. And each night, Varuna, as the moon, visits a different nakshatra. As Varuna does this, he creates waves of consciousness. The moon is also connected to the earth, right? So Varuna, as the moon, visits the different stars and creates waves of consciousness. But he's also connected to the earth, so he transmits the messages of the nakshatras to the earth and creates modulations in our mind so that we go through an experience of consciousness. So, on a certain level, energetically, that's what's happening with the nakshatras. Okay. The nakshatras are also noted to be the wives of the moon, and it's the wives of particular deities in Vedic philosophy that are known to carry the Shakti of that particular deity. The moon is manas, our sensory mind. It also grows things. So the nakshatras are the power of growing things, they're the power of growing our consciousness. Okay. So there's really a lot going on with that. And sure, we can look to try to understand what's happening with the nakshatras. Like at this particular point in my life, I'm going to have this particular experience and it's going to look like this. Or we can try to understand why that's happening. Okay. So each nakshatra tends to have both a positive polarity and equally a more challenging polarity to it. Okay, so somebody, for instance, mentioned the concept of Ashwini Nakshatra, right? So Ashwini Nakshatra is always looking to quickly solve things and to quickly solve things from a very dharmic perspective. If you read Taittiriya Brahmana, you'll understand that Ashwini Nakshatra is about the army of the heavens going out to do the work that God is, putting forward, right? And it's the first primal spark. So how does that work? In a positive polarity, it's about trying to solve things quickly, always being willing to help. That's a positive polarity of Ashwini Nakshatra. When Ashwini Nakshatra is a little bit out of balance, then the more difficult polarity that's connected to it is the concept of feeling scattered, not knowing what to do, feeling impulsive, feeling confused, feeling like energy is too, racy and intense, right? So when that uncertainty of what to do is there, when the scattered feeling is there, we need to just focus on what we can do to help in that capacity, right? And so let's give another one. So somebody else pick another nakshatra. So somebody asked a question, do I do birth time rectification techniques on natal charts? And how much would it cost to do that? It depends on how far off your birth time is. You're best emailing me through the site, right? Okay. Okay, so let's somebody else pick another nakshatra, and I'll explain it. And while we're doing that, Anuradha nakshatra, that's a good one. I'm glad somebody asked that. All right, so let's talk about the more difficult polarity of Anuradha nakshatra first. Anuradha nakshatra doesn't always fully understand its potential, right? So sometimes, and I'm just giving you one single small iota of each of these nakshatras. A lot of it is dependent upon the planet that's in it, etc., right? But with Anuradha Nakshatra, there is difficulty quite often in understanding one's potential, understanding one's strength. And so, quite often with Anuradha Nakshatra, there's a difficulty with boundaries. Okay. So, what happens with Anuradha Nakshatra when it's in a positive polarity? Well, a good way to turn Anuradha Nakshatra into a positive polarity is to practice the art of devotion, right? Being devoted to whatever it is we're devoted to. Right. And so at first, sure, you may have no good sense of boundaries. You may have feelings of low potential or feelings of unworthiness. But if you turn that into devotion, eventually you'll recognize that you are a part of God and God is a part of you. And the only separation that's there is one that is created through a split in your mind. Right. And it can even be enjoyable to enjoy that split in the mind because you always get to have devotion towards God. But then you recognize the potential that's within you. I'm just giving you some simple concepts. And I should mention that what's going to happen is that starting on the 8th of March, there's going to be a webinar series, which I'm doing one class at a time. What that means is you can register for one class, right? They're hour-long classes on the therapeutic and esoteric secrets of each nakshatra, where an entire hour will be spent on a particular nakshatra, understanding how to work with it, understanding, in addition to that, the through specific charts, how that tends to manifest, how one can focus on bringing those things back into balance when they're out of balance. So if you want to register for that, each of these individual webinar series is $59 for the hour webinar. There is a 10% discount being offered on that between now and 10:30 p.m. London time. If you want to register for those, how do you pay for those? There is a link. I didn't put the link there, did I? Sorry about that, everybody. Here, let me do this while we're kind of talking. I'm going to bring up the link to my website and just kind of bring it. But no, if you're interested in registering for that, you can get 10% off that, and you can equally get 10% off registering for any of my full-length webinar series if you go to register for any of those between now and 10:30 p.m. London time. Here is the link for the Nakshatra webinar series, where the first 3 are open to registration at this particular moment. If you want the 10% discount on that, and that is the word YouTube. Sorry, I misspelled it. Youtube. Okay. I also have 3 other courses that are going on that start in March. One is the Working with Planetary Yogas course. I'm going to give you the link to that in the window as well. Although really, if you're on the site, you can just kind of navigate around and you'll see all these things. And there's a 10% discount on that 44-week webinar course as well. In addition to that, starting on the 23rd of March is going to be a medical astrology webinar course. Okay, and let's put that link there. All of these, if you register within the next 3 hours and use the discount code YouTube, all uppercase letters, you'll get a 10% discount. And the last of the courses, which starts on the 24th of March, and I'll go over all of these again, just briefly, is the concrete prediction using Jaimini Rashi Dashas in conjunction with Vimshotri Dasha. This is a 22-week webinar course, which starts on the 24th of March. Okay, so just to reiterate, the weekly webinar series on the nakshatras can be taken one class at a time, $59 to register for each individual class and learn the therapeutic value of each particular nakshatra, as well as some of the symbolism of it. That you can register for at the top link that you'll see here. And again, use the discount code YouTube. all uppercase letters to get the discount on that. All the rest of my courses, the Planetary Yogas course, which starts on the 10th of March, you can get a discount on that as well. The Medical Astrology course, which starts on the 23rd of March, ditto 10% discount on that. And the Concrete Prediction with Jaimini Rashi Dasha's course that starts on the 24th of March, 10% discount open on that to any of those full-length webinar courses. You can do that either by trimester or payment in full. And until 10:30 p.m. London time tonight, there is also a 10% discount on all astrological services. And so for the individual who had questioned how much the birth time rectification would cost, better bet to take advantage of the discount would be to schedule in your consultation. And then if we have to reschedule to allow time to do the birth time rectification, you can do that. That way you'd be able to take advantage of the discount. Okay. So yes, each particular nakshatra does have a specific animal that is connected to that particular nakshatra. That's something that we're going to cover in specific on the course. So, please do sign up for the course because you'll understand what each of those is about and how to use it appropriately. So somebody had also mentioned some other nakshatras, right? Uttara Bhadrapada nakshatra. Okay, so let's talk about that. So when Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra is weak, the individual can find themselves in a position where they're caught off guard, where their ignorance, which we all have it, is kind of shown to them in not the most comfortable of manners, right? Where their passions get out of bounds a little bit and they don't know how to control them. And then that's eventually what leads them down the quote unquote dark alleyway, which turns out wrong. How to handle that positively: be willing to take a look at oneself. Be willing to take a look at those areas which you might be blind to and strengthen those areas, because when it boils down to Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra, it's about living up to our potential in a passionate manner, but being willing at the same time to surrender. And I just told you probably 10 minutes worth of stuff in one sentence, and that can't even fully do justice to it. So I really recommend doing the Nakshatra course. Really, I recommend all the courses if anybody's interested. Okay, another few minutes, and let's see if anybody else has any questions. Okay. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask in relation to things that we've spoken about already, right? Ardra Nakshatra. Ardra Nakshatra, the focus with Ardra Nakshatra is, we did Anirada Nakshatra already, okay? Ardra Nakshatra, the focus is on intensity of focus, intensity of effort, whilst maintaining awareness. Really making sure that one's not developing tunnel vision. That's the phrase I want to use, right? And when we look at these on the course, we'll be looking, or when we look at them in each individual webinar, we'll be looking at them through each individual quality of it. So I'll have a lot more time to expand upon each individual nakshatra, because as I touch on each quality, like whether it's overwhelmingly a sattvic nakshatra, or whether it's a Jiva Nakshatra, Mula Nakshatra, or Dhatu Nakshatra, I'll explain what each of those is about as well. So that'll give you a lot more of the ideas of each Nakshatra and what is being asked to be developed through each of those. Okay. Pusha Nakshatra. Pusha Nakshatra needs to learn when to sacrifice appropriately. And equally, sometimes they're confronted with limitations that they don't want to accept. And so it's about being willing to accept limitation for the sake of the greater good. That's what makes Pusha Nakshatra such a nourishing nakshatra. Okay. So again, just a couple more minutes to finish up in finality. Nakshatras work great therapeutically, and really that's what they are meant, in my opinion, to be used for. We can focus on astrology to heal our symptoms, like I want to know when I'm going to get married or when I'm going to get a job, and I'm not negating that those symptoms are important. We can use nakshatras to understand a lot of the finer details of those things, But equally, when we're looking at a problem with one of those events coming into being, like having a hard time getting a job or having a hard time finding a relationship, the nakshatras are one of the components that we can look at in terms of understanding what we're needing to grow or how we're needing to apply ourselves to make those things function better in our lives. And that's why I wanted to do this course, because I feel that so many people miss this particular concept. So again, I'm going to have to finish here because I have to get on to other things. But if you want to register for any of those particular courses or schedule an astrological consultation, again, all you have to do is use the discount code YouTube, which is all uppercase letters, which I have just typed into the chat window. Okay, I'll type all the links here for you again, so you have those handy. To schedule an astrological consultation with me, you can go to the first link, which I've just typed in. If you want to register for the Esoteric and Therapeutic Secrets of the Nakshatras course on an individual course basis or individual webinar basis, that link is now being typed into the window. If you want to register for the Planetary Yogas course, which starts on the 10th of March and will run until 2020, that link is also now being typed into the window. If you want to register for the Medical Astrology course, well, we'll learn a lot of the medical associations of the nakshatras. That is now being typed into the window as well. And if you want to learn how to predict things using Jaimini, Rashi Dashas, and Vimshotri Dasha together, you can register for that course, 10% discount on that one as well. That one starts on the 24th. So yoga's course on the 10th, medical astrology course on the 23rd, and concrete predictions course on the 24th. And starting on the 8th of March, which is a Friday at 9 p.m. London time, the individual webinar series where you can register for each individual nakshatra and learn the therapeutic qualities of each. Okay, everybody, I'm going to have to leave it at that for the evening. Until next time, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.